It's August 2014, and this is a Republic notice. It's August the 30th, 2014 to be exact. This Republic notice is called the Amnesty That Never Was. The Amnesty That Never Was. And it's significant because right now they're showing their true colors and they're showing their true hands. That they know that nothing that they do is based on law anymore. And they're not even trying to hide it no more. They importing these children from South and Central America, and there are a lot of adult women with these so-called children and a lot of adult men. Probably the majority are adult women and men, but they're just news media is just showing children to try to cover it up, or MK Ultra mind control. Now, this is significant because what this shows is they knew that the 1986 Amnesty Act was a lawless act also. And right now they just don't want to hide their lawlessness anymore. They want to do what they want to do. They're getting funky in their power, and they're getting desperate and funky, and they don't want to placate to the masses to pretend otherwise. In 1986, President Reagan signed an executive order of amnesty and pretending he can override Article 4 of the Constitution to be protected from invaders and foreign species and invaders. Now, what's significant about this is that Article 4 has been protected under non-consent jurisdiction since 1865. Article 4 has been protected under non-consent jurisdiction, so that means that there's no way to wiggle around Article 4, because non-consent means Article 4 you can't negotiate with this holy contract. There's no negotiation, there's no wiggle room. So that means any amnesty or any so-called amnesty is really just illegal, and it's preemptively nullified. It's preemptively nullified by constitutionality. So it's preemptively nullified, so no amnesty was never legal. The Amnesty Act that never was. Coupled with that, we have the Black Caucus, who is national citizens of the Republic. They're black and they're stratified because a white majority public debtors said that the majority rules. And this animalistic herding behavior has no intelligence to be able to comprehend the magnificence of the Constitution, where the minority is respected in order to control the human drive of animalistic behavior and raise our consciousness to a higher level. Now, the constitutional citizens are black, and because they are black and in low numbers, they are stratified so-called district. But if they're constitutional citizens, then they're national, and that means they have nationality. So they can't be stratified to the district. Not only are they a constitutional citizen, they're a citizen of their state, and they was elected as representatives, so how are they going to be stratified to a district when they really are the Constitution? Okay, so the Constitution is national. It's not stratified into one space. So what happened was the constitutional people, which calls itself the Black Caucus, but they're really the Constitutional Caucus, they also voted on its 1986 amnesty, and whether they voted no to the amnesty, then they just following the Constitution preemptive nullification that already is. If they voted yes to this amnesty, then they're overruled by the constitutional preemptive nullification that already is. But either way, they're voting non-consent jurisdiction, because the whole jurisdiction of the Constitution was changed to abolish the institution of slavery, to protect the Bill of Rights, to perfect the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights was under consent jurisdiction to slavery. And consent jurisdiction to slavery with the Bill of Rights was antithetical to each other. They was opposing, and they wasn't in sequential congruency of each other. And so in order to bring them that way, they had to abolish slavery by non-consent jurisdiction to slavery, and then the Bill of Rights went along with it with non-consent jurisdiction and perfected the Bill of Rights so that the Bill of Rights now had teeth. It wasn't antithetical within the contract to the contract, and it had teeth of a contract that could support the Bill of Rights, and that the Bill of Rights could support the whole contract, so it becomes a unit of sequential intelligence of God's sovereignty and authority and supremacy that cannot be overrode, that is Fort Knox. Now, along with this, Article 4, of course, was with that, and also the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was put forth to Britain that, they would not be able to just come in and use South and Central America to try to overturn the establishment of North America, cultural moray and cultural genius of their constitutionality and their intellectual property as far as everything is concerned of the whole cultural makeup of language, culture, establishment of flag, and republic, identity, and reality. Now, so this is the amnesty that never was. The amnesty that never was, because Article 4 can't be, no president really supremes the Constitution. They come into the Constitution, which is called the Holies of Holies, for 3 to 4 years or maybe 8 years to serve it. But they can't supreme it because it's non-consent jurisdiction. And so Reagan was trying to supreme non-consent jurisdiction. He can't supreme non-consent jurisdiction. A presidency doesn't change the jurisdiction of the Constitution. It either serves the jurisdiction or pretends to serve the jurisdiction while doing another thing. So this Amnesty Act was just that. It was an act that never was. It was preemptively nullified. So that means the Hispanics have no legality here. And Judge Brenner, it was shortly after that or around the Amnesty Act, said that education of migrant children must take place because there was no difference between an illegal alien and an alien. Well, constitutionally it's not. But when you consider the Monroe Doctrine, and one of them that invades this border from Central, South, and Mexican America are of the Americas that's trying to change the culture of America, then it becomes a significance of difference, because what Judge Brenner said was that there's no difference between a legal alien and an alien, which is not, except one puts forth a perversion of the Monroe Doctrine. And when you have Central and South American coming in here, then that is to violate and perverse the Monroe Doctrine, which was to protect North America from merging with Central and South America. So now Britain, instead of going to Central and South America, used the bodies of secret elite societies to bring them across the border to perverse the Monroe Doctrine. And what Judge Brenner didn't take into consideration was the Monroe Doctrine. That means he made a flawed decision, because even though there might not be a constitutional legality, there is the Monroe Doctrine that really specifically wrote out that Central and South America was non-consented to be a part of even a legal or a illegal alien situation, since it perversed or since it violated the Monroe Doctrine. And so he didn't take the Monroe Doctrine in consideration, so judicial decision is preemptively nullified too. There is no constitutional basis of educating migrant children who violates the Monroe Doctrine that could infringe on the identity of North America, infringe on the identity, the language, the flag of North America, because of its proximity. So because of its proximity, there was a red alert with this Monroe Doctrine. And Judge Brenner, when he said educate these migrant children, he did not take the Monroe Doctrine into consideration. That means his judicial decision was flawed, and it was not considering the Monroe Doctrine, which means that it already had run into preemptively nullification of non-consent supremacy, because the Monroe Doctrine is protected by non-consent supremacy. Like I said, the whole Constitution and all its intellectual work, property, mores, identity is protected by God's sovereignty of non-consent, jurisdiction, supremacy, and its Fort Knox gold cosmically. So we have more than one factor, and then let's look at this other factor of Mexicans thought they had a citizenship before blacks in 1847. Well, if you want a citizenship based on consent to slavery and consent to a Bill of Rights to slavery, then that's the citizenship you're talking about. So you consent that you're slaves, that's the consent you're talking about, and you consent that you have no Bill of Rights unless it's connected with consent to slavery. So if that's the citizenship Mexicans that they had when they went to California or claimed California, well, then they consent that they have a slave citizenship and they are just subjects on the soil, and that's all they would ever be. And as far as this soil somehow being part of any other Hispanic, first of all, a lot of them are refugees from Spaniard invasion, and they speak Spanish, so they should be seeking a Spanish constitutional protection. They should be going to Spain and ask their colonial masters, what have you done for me lately? I mean, they are carrying on their language, their tradition, and their mores. Why aren't they going to Spain and ask, what have you done for me lately? Why are they seeking to rob the back and claim the 14th of a black infant that has nothing to do with their Hispanic language? Because the black infant, first language is English, and English comes from the King James Bible, you know, the proper language with the proper T's. Like they say, proper English. Well, proper English has to do with proper ties. Blacks are proper tied with Judaic history of Hebrew, of the old King James language. So they speak proper English even if you don't like it, because the property belongs to them first, because they have the proper ties as the Jews and the Hebrew Israelites to the King James original Bible. Now, all this is to say also that you can argue from here to hither about who was here first, and Mexicans can say, well, we was here first, but let me tell you, we're in all the native treaties. Blacks are in all the native treaties, and the chiefs chose us as their relatives and put us as citizens with all the rights, land inheritance, and all the major treaties of land holding natives, because blacks are the natives, and the chiefs knew blacks are the natives. Before there was the red, there was the black. Before Genghis Khan came in and charged, and maybe some mating may have took place to create the red, but there was the black native first. So, and the black native are the chosen, because they're the Jews and they're the namesake. So you can say, I was here first. The Alaskan, so-called Alaskan natives, Mongoloids, can say, I was here first. And you can call yourself anything and say, I was here first, I was here first. You're not the chosen, and you're not in the Constitution, and you consent. You consent to, in corporate doctrine, debt, public debt, identity. That's what you consent to, because you're not of the Republic. The 15th Amendment sealed the wall, and everyone had a chance to serve, but you wanted to be too greedy, and Satan offered you the world, and Satan gave you debt and contracts with dung, pasted ink, and blood with no constitutionality. So any agencies that keep on serving all these foreigners and don't put the Republic, Jews first, will find themselves under curse. And I'm talking about the people in the top there. The top will find themselves cursed. This is the time where you will start to feel effects, because the spiritual realm and the physical realm is getting ready to come close, and you will find yourself being broken down real bad. You will know that you under the cosmic judgment of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because you have never felt the pain that you're going to feel. And you will know it has to be the King of Kings, Lords of Lords. If you keep on pretending that this black wealth don't belong to blacks, and you don't make blacks the supreme priority that they are. I'm talking about the state welfare agencies. I'm talking about Social Security. I'm talking about Health and Human Services. I'm talking about the Veterans Administration. I'm talking about all housing agencies. And I'm talking about non-consented republic property. You better know who you work for. You better know that where your bread is buttered at. I'm getting sick of you ignoramuses acting indifferent to what and who feeds your asses, okay? If you want so much equality, you do the 400 years of labor. Otherwise, you respect the supreme contract of those who did the 400 years of labor, okay? And you're not equal to them until you're willing to do that. I'm tired of your so-called abuse of the equality clause. There is no equality clause that incorporate doctrines have with the constitutional republic supreme contract. There's no equality clause for incorporate doctrines because they don't even have constitutional rights. So you can take this humanity bit, but so far, humanity and the God humanity of those of the republic under your nose. That is the contract of this country. You have nothing but hypocrisy. You don't have humanity. You know this country is not yours, and that's what you're revealing. That's what you're revealing, because you don't want to serve the republic constitution. You're revealing, you're practicing your so-called hypocrisy, humanity, while those under your nose in the constitutional republic are suffering right under your nose with jail sentences, short lifespan, poor hospital care, poor dental care, poor education, and everything, while they're in the land contract. So we understand you consent to you being under judgment for we serve what God put in the contract as the least of these. And as you don't serve the least of these, and you bring the whole world to trample them while you're sitting on their wealth, then your debt is the abyss to no end. And that means you will think this is a cliche because you're arrogant and hubris like that. But the spiritual and the physical world is merging, and you will feel a cosmic pain that you wouldn't even believe existed. Your ass in that physical realm, and you will know in this physical realm that God has taken his hands off you and Satan is having his way, and all these alien demons of lizard regimes will have a feast with your ass because you did not care about God's holy nation that fed your ass, and you bit the hand that feed you. And you're going to see what you did and what predicament you put yourself in. And the majority of you are already at the point of no return. The majority of you are already at the point of no return. Your souls are already claimed in an abyss, okay? But for those who think they're not at the point of no return, and I say think, and I say that cautiously because you have grand delusions of yourself. But those that think, you better repent. You better repent real quick. Bow to blacks when you see